Hello everyone, I'm Magda. I'm engineering manager at Adobe, and today we'll talk a little bit about psychological safety. Thanks everyone for joining me. I know that between my presentation, I'm separating you from the lunch break, so I hope you'll have patience with me during this presentation, and please feel free to ask questions. I hope it will be a safe climate here, so open for questions, open for concerns, for ideas. Because I would like to share with you a framework that I'm currently using with my teams at Adobe, and that was created from some real problems. So I hope you will find it useful. So, what's the plan? We will start with why. We'll define a little bit the concept, and I will show you also some data. We are programmers, so we want to see data and have some objective arguments. After that, I will show you how to apply the framework that I created. First of all, it was a workshop, and after that, I realized that I could build it, I could transform it actually into a framework that could be scaled and used in different teams. And finally, some concrete actions. I mean, you have two options. You could apply the framework, or you could apply some concrete actions starting from today. Okay, why psychological safety? And here I'm also having another question for you, or try to remember a moment in your career when you were in a meeting and you were thinking that you have a good idea, a relevant one for that meeting, and you didn't have the courage to say it. Who had this situation in his career? Okay, yeah. How about a concern? You are in a meeting, you are actually trying to design a new feature. You have some concerns, but you are afraid to tell them because you are thinking that maybe you are incompetent, or maybe you didn't understand the setup, or maybe for sure they were thinking about that concern because it's so obvious. For sure they were thinking, why should I bring this up? Have you had this kind of situation? Okay, so yeah, I think we are near defining the concept of psychological safety. And this definition is from Amy Edmondson. And she says that psychological safety is a belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes. So this is the concept around which we will talk today. And what I could say is that on this area of psychological safety, Amy Edmondson is one of the most present people in this area. She has a lot of research and also 2 books written about this concept. And there is also another guy who is called Timothy Clark, and who also has another book about these concepts. So if you want to learn more about psychological safety, Amy Edmondson is the right person. Now, how this concept became so famous, because I think maybe you heard about it before, or if not, it's not an issue, we will hear today. But this concept is not new. It appeared in the 70s and became famous after Google ran a project called Project Aristotle. It was a 2 years research project, and they tried to understand what are the capabilities of a successful team at Google. And they ran this research for about 2 years. They interviewed about 180 teams. And what they've discovered, and this is a quote from an article where they took the interview to Julia, who was managing this project, they understood that actually the most important element, the underpinning of the other 4, was psychological safety. The people from McKinsey, they call it safe climate. So they realized that after interviewing the teams, that the basic element for all the successful team was this psychological safety. And if you have this psychological safety, you are able to build on top of it. I added bold on the underpinning because actually they discovered this concept from the paper written by Amy Edmondson 23 years ago, so it's not a new paper. And this is how this concept became famous, thanks to this project. And actually, Amy Edmondson, in her book, the second chapter from the Fearless Organization, it's also called the underpinning, because it's the base element to build successful and high-performing teams. Now, if we are talking about the equation of the psychological safety, I added here 3 elements. And this equation is done based on what I've read from Amy Edmondson and also from Timothy Clark. Amy Edmondson, for example, she said that psychological safety is a combination between trust and permission. And also, Timothy Clark brings new concept, also the respect, that is part of the equation. Now, why I added that small star on the trust? Because I just find out, and I'm sorry for the slides, that based on research done in Romania, about 10 to 12 of Romanians believe that others are trustworthy, and 85% believe that they are trustworthy. So this translates into the fact that each of us believe that we are in a country of thieves, populated by honest people. I'm trustworthy, but I think you are not. So this is based on data, and honestly, I saw it especially on my parents. They are very afraid to be cheated, to go to the market and they don't get the correct amount of money, or they buy something and is not the right quality. So I saw this at home. I'm seeing also at work. So please be mindful and think about this data when you are working a team. Because without trust, without being able to see each other in a foreseeable future, without being able to see each other working together or making sure that the other person is doing his or her job, you're not able to build on top of that. So this is part of equation, the trust part. And also the trust, it's somehow between a combination between character and competence. Permission, it's clear. If you have a space where you are allowed to ask questions, for sure you will tend to do that. And respect, because yeah, it's a common sense. It's not something unexpected to expect. Now, some examples, because sometimes it's confused, this psychological safety term. It's confused with comfort, but it's not comfort, psychological safety. So it's psychological safety when you have freedom to share thoughts, but you are not able to say anything you want. You need to be respectful, you need to be mindful about the people around you, and you need to make sure that you are able to collaborate with them also in the future. You are able to explain concerns, but you are not letting your emotion go as you please. It's not okay to go to the work and be angry at everyone because you just had a bad day. It's not the case. Allocated tasks and coaching when needed over being a laissez-faire, having a laissez-faire approach. A space where people feel a sense of ease and support versus a space free of any inner discomfort. So it's not about having a fully comfort. And I will show you some data why this is so important. Taking measured risk after considering possible scenarios over taking risk and hoping for the best. Everything is considered, everything is tolerated. Now, what happens behind the scenes? Why we have this challenge with this psychological safety term? Because actually psychological safety is how I feel in a place. How I am putting myself, if I have the courage to putting myself in front of my colleagues. And try to imagine you are part of a team and you want to build a new awesome product and everyone brings only safe ideas. You notice some mistakes but nobody addressed them or nobody challenged the ideas. Everything is very safe and nobody wants to challenge the status quo. Do you think it will be an amazing product or a regular one? Yeah, the idea is that all this stuff usually are coming from childhood or from school. When you had some unhealthy experiences and you started to become, started to have, not have the courage to say something or to ask questions, is that flight, fight, or freeze. When you are put it on the spotlight, not in a healthy way. This is one of the reasons. The other reason is these interpersonal risks. we are for sure aware about the fact that I don't think nobody is waking up in the morning and say, I'm going to work to be incompetent. I want to be the most incompetent from my team today. I will do it. I can do it. Nobody wants to look incompetent. Nobody wants to look ignorant or intrusive. And this is why we are afraid to ask questions. This is why we are afraid to raise concerns or challenge the status quo. And these are called interpersonal risks. And the reason, the psychological reason behind that, it's a bias. It's the present bias. It's the fact that you are aware about the situation that at this moment you are safe. Maybe you have this concern, but maybe it will not happen. Who knows? Why should I say it? They will think about me that I'm a negative person. I don't want that. But bad things happen, and it's called the present bias because you are focusing on the present. You are not thinking so much about the future. It's like when you eat that extra slice of cake. You know that you regret it tomorrow, but now I have the cake. It's with chocolate. We will see how we'll handle later. So this is the mechanism that is happening behind the scenes in our brain. Why it matters? It's a lot of research. I mean, even the past days, I was just checking a little bit on the internet, and there are a lot of articles, a lot of researches on this area. So everything related to psychological safety demonstrates the fact that by having this safe climate, there are multiple benefits for learning, engagement, innovation, and performance. Now, how to apply? Like I've said before, initially it was a workshop, and I will tell you later how I had the idea. The thing is that the reason behind of this performance quadrant, or actually the study behind of it, it's a research that Amy Edmondson did 23 years ago. And she was participating in this research in the hospitals. It was a hospital. In that hospital, there were multiple teams, multiple departments. And she tried to see and understand how a successful team looks like. And she analyzed what they are doing. And also, they answered some questions. She prepared some surveys for them. And what she realized after she ran the experiment and she got the data was that she noticed who are the most successful teams based on what they did and how the patients were feeling and how the patients were treated. But the data was in contradiction with what she saw. So she saw some teams that were successful, but in the survey, they reported a lot of mistakes. The other teams who were not so successful, they reported a few mistakes. What's the challenge here? And she realized actually that it's not about how many mistakes they did. It was about the courage to say that they did mistakes. So that was for her a concrete sample about what psychological safety means. So there were some successful teams. They reported multiple mistakes because they felt safe to do that. And they knew that it's important to learn from those mistakes and to share them. And this is why she called this quadrant a discovery by mistake, because she didn't expect that. It was something unintuitive for her at the beginning. Now, what's the idea with this quadrant? So there are two axes. We have performance standards, and we have the level of psychological safety. And based on where we are these things are split in 4 different areas. Now, when you have low performance standards and low psychological safety, the team is in the apathy zone. They are coming to work. They are okay with it. They wait the salary when is the salary date. Okay, and that's it. It's a job. It's something very simple for them, and that's it. They don't want to do too many things, and that's it. Now, when you keep the same performance standards, which are low, but you increase the psychological safety, you go to the comfort zone. On the comfort zone, it's so-and-so. They are coming to the office, they have some objectives, not the most challenging one. Some of them are achieved, some of them not. It depends how I feel today. So this is the comfort zone. Now, if you increase the performance standards and you keep the psychological safety low, you are on the anxiety zone. And here, it's a dangerous zone because the people are very stressed, they are overworked, and it's very challenging for them to be able to achieve their objectives because they are missing this part, the psychological safety. They are under stress, they are afraid to make mistakes, and they don't feel so well. And the last zone is when you have performance standards at a high level and psychological safety also at a high level, and this is the learning zone. And this is the desirable area, or the high performance zone, it's called by Amy, where the people are thriving, they are challenged based on their abilities, so they are calibrated. Their challenges they have, they are calibrated with the abilities they have, and they are learning and getting complex things done. Now, after I discovered this framework, I participated at the neuroscience of communication, I think it was called the course, and I learned about this chart. It's actually, I'm interested, it's very famous, the Yerkes-Dodson law. It's a correlation between performance and the stress level. And this one was very unintuitive for myself. I tended to think that if I am not stressed, I am relaxed, I am able to do my best, I am able to achieve my objectives, I will be very performant, I will be very productive, and I will be amazing. The reality is not that the research shows that is not the case. So what's happening here? So here we have the performance level, and on the x-axis we have the stress level. And we have, first of all, too little stress, under load. Here it's when you are going to work, you are overqualified, and you are just doing some Excel spreadsheets. And that's it. You are waiting the coffee break, waiting your colleagues who are developers to see when are you done, I want to bring some coffee, let's go outside, it's sun outside, it's sunny. So this is too little stress. And the performance is not so great. They are very relaxed. Now, the next area is this optimum stress, or EU stress, they call it. And here is the level where you are motivated and you feel pleasure for the things you are doing. The thing here is that you are challenged at the same level with your abilities, or even a little bit in plus. I mean, here you feel that you are learning. Here you are feeling that you are checking things. Here you are seeing that you are achieving your objectives, and dopamine appears. And this is the ideal state. Now, what happens if you are working too much? You get this too much stress, overload, and the cortisol appears, the stress level. You are not able to sleep. You are having challenges to concentrate. You feel exhausted. For sure, it's not a good shape to be in. And if this thing takes more than 2 weeks, you are going on the anxiety, panic, anger zone. And here, adrenaline appears. And the brain is focusing only on the survival functions. You have challenges with the immunity. You are not able to concentrate. You are not able to sleep. You have issues with the digestive system. And a lot of things are happening. So the ideal state is here. So if you are challenged enough, you are able to also have performance and achieve your objectives. And you should be very aware about when you achieve this, you arrive at this milestone. Because when you are arriving here, you have two options, to go on back where you were or to go on this area which is not a healthy one. And I added here a link to a stress test to see where you are right now. I hope here. Okay, now, the challenge. When I joined Adobe, I had one team at the beginning, and after that, they gave me another one. And what I noticed during the meetings, we were all new in the company. And what I've noticed during the meetings was that even if I asked them some concrete questions, and I tried to be as much as concrete, they were afraid to give me ideas or to raise concerns, or they were afraid to share half ideas. I had one-on-one with one of them, and he told me that, yeah, he had an idea about how to do the design for a feature, but he was thinking that it's not ready yet, and maybe the colleagues will laugh because it's just a half an idea, and maybe it's better this way. We will figure it out together. And when I noticed this behavior happening for multiple times, I remembered about this concept of psychological safety, and I remember about that quadrant that I showed you earlier. In which area do you think my team was? Sorry, too much. From here. Yeah, it was comfort, but the ones that they were afraid to answer at my questions. Yeah, anxiety, exactly. One of the team was on the comfort zone, and the other one on the anxiety. So what I've done, I ran a workshop. And I've started to talk with them about that quadrant and try to understand a little bit how could we calibrate our expectations for each quadrant. And after I ran that workshop with my team, I told to my manager about this workshop, and he told me that maybe it would be a good idea to be applied also in other teams. And when I started to document the workshop, I realized that actually what I've done was more like a framework, not exactly just a workshop. Because I followed 3 steps. And from here are coming the A's. First of all, I advertised the concept. I've learned about it. I read more. I remember 2 or 3 weekends I only listened podcasts about psychological safety, and I read the books. After that, I tried to assess the context to understand exactly where we are through that workshop and address the results. So these 3 stages happened. Now, let's get more details. First stage, advertise the concept. So I learned about this concept. I started to talk with them just like I was going when we had a small break or at the end of a meeting or during the retrospective meetings. I told them I heard about this concept, this is how it's defined, this is how it became famous, and just try to make them curious about it. And also started to share some resources to them, but the resources were selected to be very short. So I searched for them some articles that were very short, some videos on the YouTube that were also very short to keep them their attention span, because they didn't understand exactly what's happening, why I'm coming with, again, a new concept. And try to make them more curious. I told them about how Google ran that experiment. And after that, we decided to see where we are. And the following stage was this: assess the context. And what I've done, I took the surveys that Amy Edmondson used in that research, and actually had 2 types of surveys. The first one was trying to evaluate the level of psychological safety between the team members and myself as a manager. The second one was to evaluate the level of psychological safety between them. And the third one, it was also an assessment from Timothy Clark, and I also added in the slides. And this one, I've done it more for myself, how I impact the psychological safety in my team. After I ran these surveys with them and got some data, we addressed the results. And after this stage, we ran that workshop, and I will show you exactly what we have done. We defined some action items and continue to improve on that one. And I repeat this workshop at each 6 months, just to make sure we are continuing to improve on that area and we are aware about it. Now, the workshop. We did a Miro board with 2 sections. The first one was exactly the performance quadrant, with, again, all the description for each, all the details for each area. And what we have done was to ask them to fill in the post-its which situations from the past or from present they were anonymous. About when they felt like they were in an apathy zone, anxiety zone, and comfort zone. Only these three. And this exercise helps us to calibrate our expectations. What does it mean for me, anxiety or apathy or comfort? And they share their experiences. And they calibrate it also between them. When someone is asking me, is it done? When it's done? For sure, I'm here. And for sure, I'm aware about the fact that the people don't enjoy that. We will know. We know it from before, but it's just an example. So after we cover all the posts and they shared their experiences, and it was like a therapy group, I share with them. Actually, at the beginning, I asked them what are the behaviors that they are thinking they should cover in the learning zone, and I also prepared some behaviors from the book directly to them. And what they have done was that they selected a category on which they will work in the next 6 months. So they have a set of behaviors on which they will work in the next 6 months, just to make sure we apply what we have learned. And we are talking about that area, usually at the one-on-ones and also during the performance reviews. And the second part of the workshop was that we have these 3 post-its, and I'll read them for you. Where I am right now, where I want to be, where I think the team is now. And they took one post-it and put it in the right area at this moment. And for sure, like you just mentioned, I noticed that a big part of them were here for one of my teams, and a big part of them were here for the other team. So what I've noticed was somehow confirmed also by them and also by the surveys. The surveys were also anonymous to make sure that they are filling the information without being afraid of being judged or something. And at each 6 months, we run again to see where we are with these post-its, and for sure we want to be here. And the good part was that, and I really enjoyed this to see that, is that when new team members join the teams, the previous ones share with them what psychological safety is, and they show to them the quadrant, and this is how they share the knowledge. Okay, now, if you're not applying the framework, it's too complex, you don't have time. Maybe you are not having the skills to run some workshops, because it's a skill. What you could do is to first assess your personal impact. And by this, I'm referring to 7 different areas. This one is taken from Timothy Clark's book. And he mentioned that there are 7 elements through which you could realize how you impact the psychological safety inside of your team. Even if you are a leader, even if you are an individual contributor. So it's for everyone, this assessment. So he's talking about the presence. When you are in a meeting, how the other people are reacting. They continue to be in a natural way, or they are a little bit stressed, they are choosing their words, and you notice some inconsistency. How do you influence their decision? You are very opinionated, or you're listening also the other people's perspective. Do you know how to get feedback, especially constructive one? What you are doing when someone is coming to you and he or she said that she did or he did a mistake, or the production is down. Does your influence draw people out or shut them down? Also, if they have ideas, they are aware or able to do that, to share those ideas with you and with the team. If you are encouraged to have healthy conflicts, what's happening when they make mistakes? And also here we will get a deep dive to see what kind of mistakes we should celebrate. Plus, how you react when you hear the truth that you don't want to hear it. So this is a personal assessment that you could do and be honest with yourself. Now, some concrete steps that you could apply from today. If you are an individual contributor and not only, and I really enjoy this phrase from Amy, as a team member, it's not your right, it's your responsibility to challenge ideas with respect. Now, how to do that? Please. There are 3 different categories of activities that you could do. First of all, have a common understanding language. I think here it was just before a presentation about the DDD. You have that domain language, and you are sharing the same domain and the same understanding. The same is happening when you collaborate and when you are working on a project. And I really enjoyed this article from Molly Graham. It's called Black Hole Words. And these black hole words are common words used in different areas or projects. You think that everyone knows what they mean, but actually each one of them has a different definition. What means for me quality is different than maybe what you are thinking that is quality. Or operational readiness, or monitoring and alerting, or feedback, or mistakes. And here on the mistakes, I think you are heard about this phrase, celebrate mistakes. Should we celebrate all the mistakes? If you are doing a deploy, and you know that you don't have tests, and you know that you didn't get an approval on the PR, and you put that check because you have the admin rights on Git, and you are doing the deploy in production. This is a mistake that should be celebrated or not? Exactly. So what I really liked in this book was that Amy make a clear differentiation between stupid mistakes and smart mistakes. And the stupid ones, or dumb ones, or how you want to call it, are these kind of mistakes when you know the rules, but you don't respect them because you just want to be rebel today. So those mistakes should not be celebrated. The ones that are smart mistakes are the ones when you have a lot of complexity. You are doing a proof of concept. You are trying to implement a new feature. You are aware about the risks, but you try it because you also have some data that support your ideas, or you got some positive feedback from your clients. So these are smart mistakes that should be celebrated because you assess the risks. The other ones, when you just do it because you just want to not respect the rules, it's a different story. Model and practice curiosity. Avoid why questions. This one I learned from starting with why. Please.
Just to be clear, you can't say to someone you made a stupid mistake, right?
No, it's just between us. It's a safe place.
A little bit of an overkill. So you made a mistake, like a stupid mistake, but still.
Yeah, it's a word we are using here to just describe this concept. It's a safe place. It's just between us. So don't do that. Yeah, sure. Avoid why questions. This one with the why question, the challenge with this one is especially when something bad happens, and you want to understand the reason or the flow that triggered that problem, that issue. If you are going to a person and you don't have enough psychological safety, and you are asking why was the production down yesterday, is not the right approach. Why? Because they tend to be defensive. When you are asking why, they tend to think that they are responsible for that, or maybe they did that mistake and they feel it guilty. And by doing that, you are triggering some feelings inside of them that those feelings will trigger an unlogical behavior. They will not be able to recall what happened actually, and they will just get nervous and they'll be defensive. Instead of asking why questions, try to understand what happened. When you ask what happened, they are trying to recall the stages, the steps. And this, by asking this way the question, they are going in a more logical area from their brain, and they just try to understand exactly for themselves what happened and to explain to you. Don't mistake silence for agreement. This one is very challenging, especially I had this one at the beginning when I joined Adobe. Should we do this way or the other way? Or who has some ideas? Silence. What you are doing with that? And was very challenging for me to understand that they were used to work in a different way. And I need to have patience. And I need to continue to ask questions. And I started to ask each one of them in some moments to just have their opinion. Just want to have your opinion. Let's see what you are thinking about. It's not a right or wrong answer. Let's just see. It's like a brainstorming. And this is how I try somehow to involve them more in the process. I'm still working on that, but it works sometimes. But it's important to understand that if you have silence, it doesn't mean they are okay with that idea or they agree with it. Share your perspective and invite your colleagues to share also theirs. And here, it's about asking questions. And this skill is very useful. I noticed in the latest years how useful it is to ask questions instead of offering advice. For example, I had these tendencies. Because we are programmers, we are fixing problems, no? We are solving algorithms. So if someone is coming with, to me with a problem, I offer a solution, no? It's the right thing to do. The reality is that if you are asking questions, you are actually modeling a process in the mind of your colleague that will help him or her to solve that problem next time by himself or by herself. If you are offering directly the solution, they will not have the opportunity to bring their own ideas or bring their own solutions. So this is why sometimes when they come to me with a problem, I ask them, do you want just to complain or you want a solution? And sometimes they answer, I just wanted to complain. Okay, then I am listening. Because it happens also to me, and I read something in a book or an article, I don't remember exactly, and it happens also to me in my one-on-ones with my manager. And I go to them and tell Catalin, I have a problem. I know how to solve it, but I just want to complain. Please listen to me, because I'm feeling very nervous, and I'm not in a good state of mind right now. So here, the power of questions, it's a useful tool. The questions are a useful tool, are a powerful tool. What are we missing? What other options might we consider? Who has a different point of view? Do you have experiences with things like that? And this is available even if you are a junior, even if you are a senior person, even if you are a leader. You will involve your colleagues. Be inclusive in decision making. Here it's about asking for feedback. And what I also learn and I share with my colleagues is that if you are going to a person and say, what feedback do you have for me? What do you think they will say? Nothing. Exactly. Everything is fine. Instead, you should try, what's your feedback about my presentation from yesterday's meeting when we talk about that feature? How I presented the arguments. I was able to persuade the people. I was clear enough. What answers? Do you think you'll get a better answer on this one? Yeah, because you focused the attention to some specific things that you want to get feedback on. You are working to improve those things, and you are asking for feedback. And this feedback, it's also happening on the code. When you are receiving reviews on your code, actually you are receiving feedback for your code, not for yourself. It's a distinction. Okay, also, don't interrupt or allow interruptions. This is happening especially when you have in your team people who are very opinionated or who enjoys to talk. It happens. Also, sometimes I have this challenge. And it's important to make sure that everyone has enough space to share their ideas. And usually what you could do here is to ask people who are not so opinionated or who doesn't speak up too often, ask them first and leave the other ones at the end to give them space to share their ideas. And also acknowledge input from others, especially when you are doing something good. Usually it happens through a team. It's it's not so often to have only one person that it's able to bring a success in a team. It's a teamwork. Also, when you are sending that celebration email, we did this release, please also thank you to your colleagues. It counts a lot. and they'll feel safe to contribute also in the future and to be more engaged. Now, if you are a leader, and not only, and here I'm talking about discomfort. The role of the leader is not to protect their team from discomfort. It's to protect them from harm and motivate them to push through the discomfort and harness it for growth. It's like when you are going to the gym and you just stay there. Do you think your muscle will be changed? No. Now, what actions to do? Run effective one-on-ones. Here the mistake that is happened very often is to talk about the project during the one-on-ones. No, it's not the right place. You have daily meetings, you have retrospectives, you have plannings, you have refinements for that status report. Main topic should be about issues and concerns, give and receive feedback, career conversations. Listen to understand and not to reply. It's very challenging sometimes to listen. Just stay and listen. Because you think that you have the solution, or you remember about a situation when you had something similar and you are very eager to share that thing with your team member, but it doesn't help. They will not feel safe next time to come to you to talk about that challenge or to talk about that issue. Another one, when you receive bad news from your team members, you should do two things. First of all, thank you. Second one, what could be done? By having these two things, and it's a work to be done, it's a habit to be built. For sure, at the beginning, when someone is coming to you and they say that the production is done, thank you for letting me know, for sure it's not the first thing in your mind. But we should work and build this habit, because if you are not able to follow these steps, next time when something bad will happen, you will not know. And it's worse than this part, this situation. Frame the work to handle ambiguity. This one is also explained in the book, and I really enjoyed it, and I started actually to use it also with my teams. Frame the work as an experiment. Make the people aware that it's a complex thing to be done. Maybe it's the first time when they are doing that thing, that complex task, that feature. And also when it's about processes, in order to at least give it a try, frame it like an experiment. Let's run this experiment together. Let's have this definition of done this way. Let's build it together. And in 3 months, we'll come back to it and see if it's still relevant. If it's not relevant, we will remove it. If it's still relevant, we will keep it. And by having this approach, they are more open to try it and see if it works or not for them. See if it helps or not. Also, by acknowledging your own failures, plus the lessons learned, you encourage also them to do the same. And this helps a lot, because if someone made a mistake, even if myself as a leader, and I shared that mistake with my team, and I told them also the lessons that I learned, it's very, it's not the possibility to happen again, to have again that mistake is very small. So share your mistakes and the lessons learned, because the lessons learned are the maturity part. I mean, you are aware about the fact that you learned something. You reflected on that mistake and you learned something from it. And a team with purpose is engaged, inspired, and psychological safe. What I've done here with my team was to define our mission. Why are we here? Why we get our salary? What's our North Star? And this helps a lot because they understand where are added in the big picture. They understand exactly that their work counts, and it's important for the company, and it's important also for themselves. Now, speaking up is only the first step. The true test is how leaders respond when people actually speak up. I would like to keep this in mind. And if you are curious to learn more about this concept, I have here all the resources that I covered. I think I added also that playlist from Spotify. It's 8 hours of podcasts, plus the 2 books. And it's also a LinkedIn learning course that somehow summarizes the book. It's done by Edmondson. I'll share the slides on Twitter. And if you have questions, I'm here. Please. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, it could be done this way and just follow the recipe. Or you could start from what I understand from you, if I understood correctly, you could start by having a common understanding about feedback. And maybe it sounds very relevant, but it's not. For example, what I've done with my team, and this was one of the first steps before this one, which was a big one, was to share the types of feedback, what I've learned about feedback. There are 3 types: congratulatory feedback, constructive feedback, feed-forward feedback. And I tried to share with them some examples. And we also did a team event, and I prepared for them some scenarios to learn to give to themselves feedback. Because it's about what you mentioned, that you want to speak up, but in a respectful way, in a constructive way. So you want to get something from there. And for example, on the constructive feedback, what I've discovered, it's a feedback equation, because this is how I also inspired my psychological safety equation. And here it's talking about stating the facts. Facts. No, I think you were very inappropriate in that meeting. I observed that during the yesterday meetings, you raised the voice 3 times. Facts, numbers. Then you share the impact. The impact was that the people were afraid to ask questions, or the people didn't share any ideas. This is the impact. And at the end, you could add an open question or a request. Usually it works better with open question. What happened? Are you okay? What triggered you during that meeting? And start a conversation with them. And this feedback equation could be also applied when you are making code review. This function is very big. It has 120 lines. This is the observed facts. These are the observed facts. You count it, it's easy to demonstrate. The impact is very difficult to be tested, it's very difficult to be debugged, and you have a lot of copy-paste code here. And the open request could be, here you could add a request. Please, have you considered splitting it in small methods? And this is how you apply giving constructive feedback in code reviews. And by having this shared language, you could start from somewhere. And after that, you could apply also this one. I hope it helps. Any other questions? Please.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about the 5 whys?
The root cause analysis. Yeah, that one usually it's happened with yourself. This one with to not ask why question is starting with why from Simon Sinek. He described the process behind the scene. But 5 whys, it's about root cause analysis. So usually you are doing that like an exercise for yourself or for your team, and you are expressing, okay guys, okay team, let's try to understand what happened, and let's apply the 5 whys technique. It's a different than going to you and why the production was down yesterday. Okay, hope it helps. Other questions? Okay then, go to the lunch break. Thank you very much for your time. Hope it helps.